wouldn't sending a handwritten note get the point across better, less expensive, and more genuinely? I just felt, I think people are always searching for these really complex, clever solutions when sometimes it's just something simple and genuine.
Give you this extra thing. And I want to say the third use that I think people can do is as well, is this has had a real impact too, is like in growing an audience. And I'm just, a little micro influencer. I'm no Jay Abraham or anything like that, but thanking the super fans just out of nowhere. Like I'll have our VAs, see if we can track down an address for them and then upload them to the system. And when they get a surprise letter in the mail from somebody that, just like acknowledging that I wouldn't be who I was if it wasn't for you guys, liking and commenting and all that stuff, like it goes a real long way. When people don't understand that behind the scenes, they're not just commenting on your stuff because you make a Facebook post, but because you've really gone the extra mile. And the cool thing about it is if you do it right, it's like 100 times out of 100 handwritten is unexpected. So it's like, they're not expecting anything. And then they're like, I've had people say like, why am I getting a letter from Mexico? And they open up like, Frankie wrote me. How cool is that? Right. And they're like, I always like 100 times out of 100 get a private message about it after. And when's the last time you sent a text? Like I got texts right now that are unanswered from people and vice versa. I haven't messaged people back, but like almost always they take the time to respond. So it's such a cool tool.
Yeah. And I don't want to shit on anybody else's projects, but there's a San Diego, I don't know if they're SEO or SEM company, they were prospecting us and they sent me this FedEx envelope, and in the envelope was this, you've probably seen them, these like digital books where it looks like a card on the front, you open it up and then there's a screen on the inside, and then it just played some marketing blather video that I didn't pay attention for 2 seconds. And all I could think about is, how does this work? Not what the message that they're trying to get across. That I was totally distracted from that. But being a big geek, I was like, how does this work? What's the chip inside? All that. And then the second thing I was thinking, I was thinking 3 things. Second was, how much did this cost? Because for them, and how much waste is there because it's expensive and there's e-waste and all that. But how much did this cost? And if it costs so damn much, I must be worth a fortune in margin to them, so I should go work for another or look for another SEO, SEM firm that's not going to rip me off like these guys would, right? Because they're going to make a fortune off me. And then the third thing I thought was, wouldn't sending a handwritten note get the point across better, less expensive, and more genuinely? I just felt, I think people are always searching for these really complex, clever solutions when sometimes it's just something simple and genuine versus buying some $15 device, FedExing it for another $10, and then potentially setting the wrong impression that way.
Yeah, totally. And you use the word genuine. I remember reading about a guy who was he was the most successful car salesman. I think Guinness Book of Records actually acknowledged him as one of the either like best all time or something like that. And they asked what he did. And he did like primarily like 2 things that were responsible for his businesses. When somebody bought a car, he took a picture of them happy with their new car and he hung it up on his wall. And then he took the time every single month to write every single person who had ever purchased from him just some kind of like note in the mail. And this was obviously like probably like 30-40 years ago, pre-internet times and things like that. And all he did is month after month after month. And by the end of it, he had sold so many cars, he was writing 10,000 letters a month, and he had to get, help from his assistants, and there were no like automated tools like handwritten. But like that was his secret, was just thanking people for their business and never ever like, once the relationship was built, like continue to enhance it rather than, kind of stopping that momentum, which so many people do, is like once the transaction's done, it's like that. So I'm with you. I think the best way to really use it is just genuinely thank people. And I think most marketers, I wonder if you have some thoughts on this, part of the thing they struggle with is they're always trying to measure everything in a direct ROI way. And because of that, they can't see like, well, we said thank you, But like you just see it, like where if you thank people, suddenly you're a bigger deal in their world. They're more like, I noticed, for example, because we mentioned Desiree, that the first time I booked with Jay, like it was a lot of fucking work. For those of you guys who don't know, it took me like a year to be able to, like, of pursuing Jay Abraham to actually like get him on, come on, do the show. After like thanking Desiree and like, building relationship, when I asked her, like the thing happened in 5 minutes. And part of that is, I'm not saying it was handwritten alone, but like once there's a real relationship there, and handwritten is one of the most powerful tools in there, like, it's a 5 minute kind of deal.
Yeah. So a couple things to your point. Number one, yeah, the ROI thing, it's a little out of hand, because if somebody's buying a car, what's the cost to acquire that car buyer? A couple $100, and then to thank them with a $3 card. It's kind of like they're missing the point. If the value from that sale made them thousands of dollars, it cost them 80 or $100 to get them in the door, and then to spend $3 more to retain them and potentially build that relationship, it seems silly to me. And I think people that are looking for ROI all the time are kind of missing the point. The point is, and by the way, everything I say has to do with real handwritten notes too, not just my company, but we're all too busy now to do it. But if you can't take the time to thank somebody when there's a million car dealerships, there's a million handwritten note companies and a million everything else, if you can't thank somebody for them choosing you and not want ROI out of it, it's kind of like, gee, Mr. Entitled, what's your deal? So that's number one. Number two, if you must have ROI, I say run a long-term A/B test. Thank some people, don't thank others, and see what happens.
Yeah, because it'll show up in your retention, especially in our world. It'll show up in your
retention. Yeah, and I can give you an example on that. There's a snack box company for offices that we work with. So they send, you subscribe, and they send you chips and cookies and all that every month for your team. And if they screw up with you, they then send you another swag, a box of swag and chips and cookies, but they include a handwritten note apologizing for screwing up. That screw up could be the cookies got destroyed or the box was delayed, whatever it was. What they found was the people that had the win-back experience of receiving the handwritten note with the box of cookies and swag actually had a higher lifetime value. They stuck around longer, bought more than people that never were screwed up with in the first place.
Yeah.
So they just changed their tune and screwed up with everybody, sent everybody a win back, and raised all tides. So, that's kind of the A/B test there. But I would say if you're really looking for ROI everywhere, you're potentially missing the point. And another example from my past was text messaging. I'd go into these meetings and wax poetic with these. I never found huge success dealing with like C-suite people. They were way too high on the totem pole and would just wax poetic, but not actually implement. But I was in a meeting with some CMOs, and they're saying, what's the ROI on this texting program? What's the ROI on that? Blah, blah, blah. And the whole program was maybe 30 grand to run the whole thing for this big company. I get in the elevator, and one of those guys starts bragging about some new mugs that he's printing and the $100,000, budget for these mugs that he's just going to send out to his best customers. Well, what's the ROI for that? So people take very selective approaches to what they want ROI for and what's just fun to them. So, I think you just have to be consistent a little bit, and also just understand if you treat people better, they're going to come back. Like, what's the ROI for telling all your store clerks and training them to say, hello, thanks for walking in, and thank you for coming in? I mean, it's hard for them to measure that too, but it's still, everybody knows they have to do it, right? So that's kind of the viewpoint we take on it.
Yeah, and you're totally right. Like the way you handle screw ups, and this is a thing I think in business not enough people understand too, is that like the way you handle screw ups determines whether or not people are going to stay with you. And like two kind of contrasting points of that, I bought a Bitcoin miner, which is behind me, and in shipping the thing to Mexico, the company forgot to fill out some form. And so it got hung up at the border. And I remember contacting them. They say, well, shipping's not our problem. I go, no, it's not a shipping thing. There's a packing form you're supposed to put in there. So then I contacted the border people, and they said, something along the lines of, it was like, only they can do it, basically. Like you
Right,
can't
right.
submit, only they can do it as the shipper. So I contacted them again and said, like, the border people are saying you guys have to fill out this form. There's nobody else. They said shipping's not our problem. Fuck off, kind of thing. And then they said if it ends up not going through and it comes back, that's your problem. We're going to charge you the $100 extra for shipping and kind of thing. I ended up actually just saying, like, okay, I'm going to go online right now. I'm going to leave you a shitty review, or you're gonna do this. And I almost had to like threaten them to do it. And I remember thinking, like, I would never buy from them again. And for me, like, I'm kind of like, like crypto nerd. So I may have bought like 20, 30 of these things from them, but they made sure that was the first and only one. And then not only that, if anybody else is interested in getting them, I'm going to make sure they don't buy from them as well, just because of
Yeah,
how
100%. You're an influencer.
yeah. And then
Yeah.
secondly, though, I remember actually, and this was a contrast, like a friend of mine had actually brought a little like vaporizer thing, and they don't allow them in Mexico, and it ended up breaking. And so I contacted the company and just said, like, is there any way I could mail it in to repair to you or whatever? And they said, hey, we're really, really sorry. We see what happened. We're going to send you one. And I was actually taking a trip to Canada. It was actually my first time being away from all three of my kids at once. And I said, well, I'm going to be in Canada. It would make a lot more sense there. But the only thing is, I'm only going to be there like, a couple of days. It would have to be kind of like expedited shipping. I'm like, I don't even know if that's possible. I got it there. There was a handwritten note in there just saying, we hope this got there in time, expedited shipping. And I thought, man, I would recommend this company 27 times over, because they actually stood behind their product and they cared. And it made me an evangelist, because when something went wrong, like how well they handled it.
Hey guys, if you like this video, you'll also like my book on Amazon called Beyond the Agency Box, which you can also find by my name, Frankie Finn, and it's got a lot of awesome reviews, and it really just goes deeper on a lot of things we're talking about, everything you need to grow and start a lifestyle agency, from the stages you'll go through to getting clients, to how to create winning offers, to high value deliverables, to wowing clients, to building teams, to building systems, and building a boring factory that's like a 7-figure money machine for you. So if you're interested, I put links for you in the video description, as well as it'll be in the pinned top comment below, and make sure to check those out.